Good evening and welcome to Let's Talk Politics, a special program brought to you by the People's Progressive Party Civic. I'm your host, Michael Gordon. I'd like to welcome those of you looking at this program across the length and breadth of Guyana, as well as those viewing in the diaspora. Welcome all. I'd also like to welcome those of you who are listening to this program on Freedom Radio. Tonight, we're going to be discussing a very important issue. And critical to the development of any country is the whole notion and the success of infrastructural development. And what we have seen over the past 5 years was a paucity and a range of initiatives that reflected what can be described as cluelessness in relation to the infrastructural development in the creation of new infrastructure, including in the electricity sector in Guyana. What we also saw was the bungling of many projects, multi-billion-dollar projects left by the Donald Ramitara administration in 2015. The APNU AFC came into government, and infrastructural development in this country essentially came to a grinding halt. There were some minuscule things done, which in essence was a continuity to what was left, as I said, by the Ramitara administration. One would remember the Mandela Avenue Highway, the many roads across the length and breadth of Guyana, main access roads, the secondary road on the east bank of Demerara, even what is now the visible overpasses along the east bank of Demerara were not sufficiently concluded. You saw significant downgrading of the Chadijagan International Airport, reduction in the scope of work, but increases in prices. Unimaginable. But very important to this discussion tonight is a gentleman who I believe is perhaps one of the most critical components or one of the most critical pieces in the development of this country, critical to infrastructural development. I'd like to welcome you, ladies and gentlemen, to the Minister of Public Works, the Honorable Juan Edghill. Bishop Edghill, I'd like to thank you for being a part of tonight's program.
Michael, thanks for having me, and let me extend greetings to all of your viewers and listeners. And I'm certainly happy to share this time with you all and to bring any amount of enlightenment that I can and contribute towards the discourse tonight.
Difficult, Minister Edghill, particularly from the standpoint that what you had to start off by doing, first I have to mention that you also played in the initial stages of this Irfanali administration. You played a critical role in the oversight of the finance sector. Of course, you presented the first budget of the Irfanali administration. That was the emergency budget presented just after the PVP's assumption of office. But what has made, and I would like first and foremost to go on record in commending you for the stewardship, the leadership, and also the vision you and your staff within your ministry have demonstrated since the assumption of the PPP's assumption of office on August 2nd, 2020. Notwithstanding that, one of the tough tasks, and we're going to go back a bit, Bishop, one of the tough tasks you have had is essentially, I don't want to say damage control, but you've had the misfortune of a repair job. You've had the misfortune of a correcting job. You've had the misfortune of a cleanup job, as referred to in his recent press conference. The Vice President spoke today, the magnitude of cleaning up not only of failed projects, but corruption, which essentially is the legacy of the David Granger administration. It must be tough on you and your technical staff, Bishop.
Well, Michael, the big challenge that we had, and I think still continue to have, is that we came to office with a mandate and with a vision of things we want to implement. We want to modernize Guyana. We want to transform Guyana. We want to improve in a significant way Guyana's infrastructure. But one of the things that is critical is that while we're attempting to do new things, we have to pay attention to that which existed before and was not adequately maintained. So let me give you an example. We are working on building a new Demerara Harbor Bridge. This is going to be a world-class piece of infrastructure. It will be a high-span bridge, which the height will be 56 meters from the ocean or the river level. It's going to span that section to allow ships to pass without having to open the bridge. It's going to be a 4-lane bridge. It's going to carry all the necessary modern day amenities for a bridge of that stature and nature. But while I'm trying to get that bridge built, we have to spend at least $1.2 billion. Note the figure, $1.2 billion to maintain one span on the old Demerara River Bridge. Why? The APNU AFC and Patterson in particular ignored the cries of the management of the Demerara Harbor Bridge about the damage, the breakages that existed. When we got into office, it was like they left it just to collapse. We had to do emergency repairs, and we had to now get into a mode of replacing an entire span. And that was as a result of what is called sheer neglect. So that's the Demerara Harbor Bridge. With the ferries, our ocean-going vessels, these vessels need to be in dry dock at an appropriate period, at latest every 2 years. These vessels were not dry docked, so we had deterioration, in layman language, rotting, holes developing. We had to rush those vessels into emergency dock. So while we're trying to build a new ferry vessel to go to Region 1, with funding from the India government, which was a project that you spoke about, which was left since the Ramatar administration days, you're trying to get the new vessel going. You have to be dealing with emergency repairs on the old vessel. The roads, the city fences, the traffic lights. Everywhere you go, what you have is major interventions rather than adding and improving. You now have to be spending significant sums at repairing and renewing and largely because of the lack of maintenance. In the electricity sector, they did not add to the base load capacity of GPL. And worse than that, the maintenance, the routine maintenance of the transmission lines were not done. The managers who are responsible could tell you about the challenges and the difficulties they had in just getting routine maintenance, delays. So when we got into office, even if you could generate the capacity, the problems with the maintenance lines, the connectors, things that should have been maintained are not adequately maintained. So people are still complaining of blackouts. So that was one of the major challenges that we had. Trying to implement the new things you want to do, but still have to be able to divert significant sum to deal with the deficit that existed as it relates to the maintenance of our infrastructure, putting things in shape. Cokers not being adequately maintained, so they are damaged. You have to get out there, do work. People are already flooded, damages done to people's lives and livelihood. And then you have to start thinking about new structures. The wharves and the stellings, badly deteriorated. So while you're thinking about modernizing with new waterfront development and bringing into place capacity for the modernization of our water transport sector, you got to be spending money to maintain and do significant repairs because of neglect. You know, it is amazing that this APNU AFC government that was fired or dismissed from office, one of the reasons why the people of Guyana dismissed them or did not renew their contract was because of gross underperformance, ineptitude, their inability to maintain simple things and to do routine things. And it is not because of the lack of skill, because practically at the Ministry of Public Works, the engineers are the same engineers. The technical people are the same people. But why is it that they are doing now what they could not have done before? Leadership, vision, oversight, management, drive, and perspective, all of that was lacking. When you have a lackluster administration, people who never got out in the fields, who depended upon reports in air-conditioned offices, and ministers who people couldn't meet. I'm told every day in my office when people come to see me, they were trying to get to ministers before, couldn't get to see them. Only God knows what they were doing. They did little, if anything, at all. So, yes, I'll be happy to talk to you about the major things that we are working on now. But I can tell you, every NDC, every concerned citizen that have written or sent in videos or pictures to me about things that needs to be done in their community, you know what it boils down to? Lack of maintenance. If the road shoulders were cleaned and the water was draining off the road, we didn't have to get to the stage where it is. If the potholes were sealed and repaired, People don't have to be damaging their cars and their limbs, but we are working on fixing it. And we are going to do lots of new things. But Michael, a significant amount of monies are being spent on maintenance because of that culture of neglect that transpired in Guyana during the period 2015 to 2020 when we took office.
Absolutely. Bishop, I want to raise, sometime during the course of this program, I want us to have a discussion on the circumventing of the, especially procurement procedures, public procurement procedures. And this goes to the issue with the Guyana Police Force and the Police Service Commission. But I want to get back to issues relating more specifically to your ministry. And one of the bugbears for me, personally, is the downgrading of the scope of the Chedi Jagan International Airport. And I have my own views, Bishop Edghill, why this was so. I believe the airport, and this is how petty and frivolous, the level of frivolity, in my own view, was astounding. I believe one of the reasons why the airport's scope was downgraded, I also believe why little attention was done, very little due diligence as it relates to the work the contractors were doing, was simply because the airport bore the name of Chedi Barra Jagan. And I stand corrected, but I think it was deliberate political pettiness. Notwithstanding that, I believe, like many other things within your sector, what happened at the Chedi Jagan International Airport is criminal, and I hope someone faces the consequences at some time.
Well, Michael, let's talk about the airport a little bit. This was a project that was in the pipeline, under construction, when the PPPC demitted office May 2015. It was a $138 million funded by the China Exim Bank and 12 million from the government of Guyana, and that's US dollars. This airport was supposed to have capacity for a new terminal building, to accommodate 8 air bridges, a new runway with capacity to accommodate larger aircraft, apron to accommodate those new aircraft, facilities for offices and airlines to conduct business, a modern state-of-the-art airport. We demitted office. The APNU AFC, with their visionless, infantile political culture, because that's what you were seeming to describe when you spoke to the pettiness. I will call it their infantile political culture, did what they did to the Chedi Jagan International Airport. We ended up with 4 air bridges, a renovated airport, a reduced scope that is so significant, and a project that was not coming to an end.
And more, I don't get it.
I missed that, Michael.
I'm saying, and the project significantly downgraded, And
and they were paying more.
and significant increase in price.
Well, when we came into office, I made it very clear in my first visit to the airport that we were not going to accept the project. His Excellency, Dr. Mohammed Irfan Ali, President of Guyana, himself went to the airport. The Chinese contractor, the same Chinese contractor that Patterson and the APNU negotiated with, reduced the scope and the value of the total reduction was possibly in the vicinity of about 30 million US dollars. About 30 million US dollars. We negotiated with them, told them we're not accepting the project. And we now have a new agreement without us having to finance it. The Chinese contractor is financing their facilities with corridors to accommodate 2 other air bridges to facilitate the larger kind of aircraft at their expense. And they have to put in a facade for the whole front of the airport so it will have a modern look. They have to put up a superstructure that will facilitate facilities for food courts and office spaces. They reduced. We came into government with the same contractor, and we got back from that contractor to bring the airport closest to where it ought to have been, even though they had a signed contract with the APNU, AFC government for the reduction of scope. The Chinese knew that they were dealing with different people who were knowledgeable, people who had a vision, people who were straight, and people who understood. They're going to lead by example, and they're going to give to the people of Guyana what they deserve. The airport was non-functional in a number of different ways. I don't have to sit here tonight to repeat that. You know, when they were hiring portable toilets to carry to Chedijagan Airport because the toilet system wasn't functioning, the smell and all the rest of it. It's not a year yet since we're in office, and we have gotten the Chinese to correct all of the critical items to bring the airport into functionality. You know why? The Chinese recognize that they are dealing with a government. They understood the president, the vice president, the minister of public works, and the cabinet are people who take their job seriously. We expect by December 31st of this year, the airport will be looking much different. Work is ongoing. I can tell the people of Guyana tonight, we have approved the designs to facilitate the corridors for the 2 extra air bridges, the expansion that needs to take place, the designs for the facade, the superstructure, the airport. We will not get 100% of what we envision when we sign the contract. But certainly, we're not accepting what we have there. We are significantly improving it. And that's what we're doing. So the people of Guyana have a clear understanding. When we left, We show the world an airport, a new terminal building, 8 air bridges, facilities for duty-free shops and food courts and all the rest of it. What we took over, there's not even a facility there to open a restaurant. Michael, there is no facility there in the airport to open a restaurant. No airport office has a modernized office. The whole section of the airport untouched, nothing being done. Raw, dilapidated sections that now have to be fixed and modernized. And that's just one example. It would appear that they had the Midas touch, that whatever they touch collapse. Go to the Sheriff Mandela 4-lane upgrade project. That project was left in the pipeline. While I was at the Ministry of Finance, as minister within the Ministry of Finance, that loan from the IDB was negotiated. The money was available. The studies and the design of that highway, that 4-lane and upgrade was left. When we came into office, the project was shut, not just because of COVID. The IDB had refused to pay money because of the non-compliance of the contractor. Where we are today, everybody is driving and they're seeing. I'm out there at least once a month since taking office, reminding the contractor of his obligations, looking at the quality of the work, checking in with the consultants, engaging the subcontractors. That highway should be delivered to Guyana by August. Moving from nothing doing to at one time 19 sites operational at the same time with 9 subcontractors and a main contractor. Why was this not possible under the APNU AFC? Why it was not possible? Only God knows. So, Michael, the issues that we are grappling with is that we have to play catch up. We have to catch up. Things that should have been done, completed, not yet. So we have to be putting lots of energy on that while we're seeking to do new things. And that's where we are.
Very, very important point, playing catch up, because as I said in my preamble, the PPP, the People's Progressive Party, CIFIC, came into government in 2020 with a manifesto of significant promise. And a manifesto, and I dare say the People's Progressive Party has always kept, and I dare not to say promises, but commitments made in its manifestos. And we're seeing that today. Notwithstanding that, there has to be, as you rightly said, a backpedaling of effort and energy and resources to correct the foolishness why David Granger and others were asleep before this country could move full throttle forward into the development as committed by the People's Progressive Party CIVIC. It's unimaginable to see the road on the west coast of Demerara from Schoonard, I believe, to Purika. The road, the parallel road to the east bank of Demerara, from Diamond to Eccles, now Eccles to South Rheinfeld, joining Mandela Avenue. All of these things are moving at once, moving apace, projects that ought to have been completed. But yet, the political opposition continues to find issues to nitpick at in what I refer to as barefaced criticism of glaring development. And it's unimaginable. Bishop, I want to raise this issue because I know you have had a significant role in the stewardship in the financial stewardship of this country. You've played a significant role in the stewardship of Guyana's economic development, and for that I must commend you. What we've seen very recently happening in the Guyana Police Force is very concerning. This is the law enforcement arm of the state responsible for ensuring that the law is upheld. Additionally, the Police Service Commission, headed by former Assistant Commissioner Paul Slow, is responsible for ensuring the quality of service by those who are responsible for ensuring the laws of Guyana are upkept. Now, the members, Mrs. no less a person than the chairman, Mr. Slow, has been fingered in wanton corruption, splitting of contracts. And it is a major concern in my own mind because these are the people who first and foremost purported to operate, speak, and portray themselves as operating and making utterances from some moral high ground. Now we have this. And it gives the impression that the paucity of forward movement of the Guyana Police Force seem to have not been the number one priority of many. And being members of the Police Service Commission, which is responsible for the promotion of senior ranks, dealing with disciplinary matters of the Guyana Police Force, these gentlemen certainly should know that they could not take contracts from the force or enter into contracts with the force. What makes it worse, Bishop, and I know I've been going on and on this matter, what makes it worse? The contract was in excess of $10 million, and I'm looking at my notes, and was supposed to go to the tender board. But because it was to go to the tender board, and the boys would not have been awarded the contract, so the boys could split it up and live lavishly, the contract itself was split. Again, criminal, Bishop.
Michael, let me tell you what is very concerning. I could imagine how the investigating ranks of the Guyana Police Force, the detectives, and those who have to prosecute this matter must be feeling. Because a lot of these persons who they are filing charges against and that they would have to prosecute are some of the same people who trained them in police college. Some of the same people were their commanders, their superior officers, who instructed them and guided them on how they should discharge their responsibilities with uprightness and with dignity and with integrity. And now these same gentlemen have to read statements and reports, highlight wrongdoings, and proffer charges against these very same people. So I'm concerned about those ranks, their whole emotional and mental state at this time. And then you have to think about the wider police force, the junior ranks, who are looking on at this and says, what? Like everybody was hustling. Like everybody was doing their thing. And then, of course, you have to answer the criticism. This might only be one of the many things that have been discovered. We had a situation where police officers were charged because they were fudging with meals and the payment of meals for inline ranks. Now we have another set of officers, and these are all senior people. And what was important, when Granger became president, one of the first things that he sought to do was to politically control the Police Service Commission. You will recall the Minister of State then writing to the Police Service Commission with instructions from the president, which was illegal, unlawful, and unconstitutional. While we were in opposition, yes, now Attorney General Mohabir Anil Nandlal took this matter to the court, and the court ruled the president cannot exercise such jurisdiction over the Police Service Commission. But it was an attempt to get the boys in place so that I could put my boys in place, so that I could control what happens in the police force. Then you will recall, we had people who were slaughtered at Lusignan, people who were slaughtered at Bartica. We had people who were killed at Agricola. And there were a whole lot of things that were happening during the crime wave. Granger never asked for a commission of inquiry into those things, but he went into a commission of inquiry of what took place at Lindo Creek, Christmas Falls, at the back there, with an intent of going after police officers who were in place. And he removed them, and he put his own boys in place. So he put his own boys in place at the Police Service Commission. He put his own boys in place in the hierarchy of the police force. 9 months into the administration of the PVPC, and you're seeing the level of wanton corruption, the incestuousness of their conduct, the wrongdoings that were done, to the point where senior police officers at the ranks of assistant commissioner, senior superintendent, and superintendents are before the court's charge. It's troubling. I could imagine the challenges that my colleague, the Honorable Robeson Ben, Minister of Home Affairs, is having. I'm sure he's having a crisis of confidence. You're sitting there in a seat. What is next? I rely on the men and women in uniform, the coercive arms of state, to maintain law and order, to ensure the rule of law is in place, to provide an environment for good governance. And look at what is taking place. rotten to the bottom. But I'm happy. I'm happy that the PPPC administration, by way of its policy direction and its policy directive, is not leaving any stone unturned. If it's wrong, it's wrong. Put the charges. So whether it's be the corruption at lands and surveys, corruption in the police force, corruption at Geology and Mines Commission, or corruption anywhere it is located, it must be addressed. In my own ministry, I've had to bring to public notice the wanton abuse of privilege, the corruption, the mismanagement that took place at the Ministry of Public Works, more particularly the agencies, and how the then ministers benefited. And we still have a major one that we have to bring conclusion to, and that is the case of the missing scales. Oh yes, tens of millions of dollars paid for scales, mobile scales, so that the trucks with the overweight that we are currently seeing on our roadways, we can bring an end to it. But the scales are not with the ministry. This is a matter that came up at Public Accounts Committee, where the then Minister of Public Infrastructure is now chairing the Public Accounts Committee. And his ministry is a ministry that has so many queries about corruption and wrongdoing. We've had to get a forensic auditor. And just last week, I got the final report from the forensic auditor. And Michael, I can tell you and the entire public, the monies were paid in Jamaica to a company owned and operated by an ally of Patterson and the APNU. A man who was instrumental in their campaign in putting the coalition together. A man who was their political strategist. But we still don't have the scales. And I can tell you tonight, if you think that it will just be police officers who will be charged for wrongdoing, the public should be on notice. There are going to be many others. Many others. And I would hope that GCOM is not excluded, because the wrongdoings at GCOM and those who utilize their office to facilitate the rigging of an election to steal government would also be facing the courts. Wrong is wrong, and it must be dealt with as wrong.
I also have reason to believe, Bishop, should there be a forensic audit at GCOM, there may be more than by misconduct in public office unearthed. But you see, and we're almost out of time, and I want to make a very important point. The APNU AFC campaigned on the themes of decency, honesty, integrity. And during the 5-year period of the APNU AFC in government, President Granger prided himself on the narrative and the propaganda around former President Granger, portrayed him in a manner of being an upstanding gentleman, a decent man, someone high in integrity. And fingers have been pointed at everyone else really other than Mr. Granger. And I believe that's nonsense. There's absolutely no way When one thinks of the Granger administration, there are a few words that come to mind. Contrive, complot, and connive. Essentially, those are words that replace the phrase of conspiring to cheat. This country has been cheated billions of dollars on the watch of David Granger, and I refuse to accept. Absolutely no one could say to me that Mr. Granger can be exculpated from responsibility. He cannot be blamed. Or I dare further say, Bishop Edghill, I refuse to accept anyone saying to me that many of these incidents of wanton corruption occurred without the blessing or at least the knowledge of the former president. And this
Well,
really
Michael,
has not been said in the past. He has been accused of
Michael,
sleeping at the wheel. He has been accused of being oblivious to certain things. And to the point of obliviousness, I say hogwash. Ain't no way a man could know all these things happening in his house. And he's unaware. So I believe many have been blessed. Your
Michael,
thoughts on
let me
this,
just
Bishop?
say this. Let me just say this. I don't want to use this precious time of ours tonight to expose the hypocrisy and the Pharisaic approach of David Granger. It's a farce, it's a facade. That image that was created to make him out to be the Messiah, the one who will deliver Guyana, was a joke. It was a falsity. It had no basis in truth or in fact. It was an illusion, an image. There are people out there who are afraid to speak from Granger's camp, who went to him and spoke to him about wrongdoing, corruption, and people who were doing things, and they were banished from his presence. Couldn't we go back to the office of the president? Couldn't visit him at his home. And these were long time friends of David Granger. And some of them are probably listening to this program. But for the sake of being discreet, I wouldn't mention their names. When we spoke about the 18 million signing bonus, Granger knew about it. He knew when Jordan deceived the nation. He knew when Trotman deceived the nation. He knew when Herman deceived the nation. He had no intention of exposing that they had accepted a signing bonus from ExxonMobil. When we revealed it in the parliament, they came with a flimsy excuse. All along, he knew. The corruption Durban part of where $500 million, at least of taxpayers' money, was taken from the treasury and passed on to a private company, Home Stretch Development Inc., of which his government minister and friend were a director, of which Larry London, a confidant and a partner, a friend from his military days, was the company secretary. And you're going to say he don't know? Michael, people wanted to create an illusion. The rigging of the elections, or the attempt to rigging of the elections and stealing of government. I went on television and on programs like this one. And I said, Mr. Granger, get your grandchild, lend them your phone, bring together the statements of poll, and let him add and tell you the results. You believe Granger couldn't know the figures of how many the PPP got and how much the AP and you got? The rigging was sanctioned by him. What Lowenfield and Mingo and Paul Lawrence and that lady from Barbados, I'm trying to remember her name now. They're all charged before the court. Granger knew. He could not sit there for 5 months and don't know. Then Granger know that when he spoke with the 5 heads of government that came to Guyana during that period and made agreements for a recount, was he taken by surprise when lawyers associated with him on the list of which he's the head of the list is using a candidate to go to court to prevent the recount that he had agreed to? You're going to say Granger did not know? Michael, Granger used the pious, sanctimonious approach of kneeling in the church and clasping of hands as if he's praying to get an image out to the Christian community that he's a decent, God-fearing man. But he was the man who sanctioned, if not orchestrated, the wickedness that was taking place in this country. With all the things that the opposition exposed, the Sussex Street bond, of which he merely played musical chairs, move of Norton to Minister of Social Cohesion, put Valda as Minister of Health and Amna Ali as Minister of Social Protection to cover a then vice chairman of the party that he was leader of, because Norton was a vice chairman of the PNC. You're going to say that he didn't know that the Sussex Street bond deal was corrupt and it was wrong? What did he do when pictures surfaced of Joseph Harmon aboard a plane in China with Chinese businessmen and all of the scandals surrounding that trip? What did he do about it? Did he dismiss Harmon? Did he offer public statement? Did he disown that he never authorized Joseph Harmon to issue diplomatic passports to businessmen? Come on. All of the things that were exposed, why did he not do anything about it? Because he was the beneficiary of it. And secondly, the players who were participating in that plot were all sanctioned by him. There were people that he appointed, people that he put in office, people that reported to him, people who had sworn loyalty to him, because you couldn't be in Granger's cabinet without being loyal to him. You couldn't be appointed if you weren't loyal to him. He was a man who enforced loyalty. Ask leaders in the PNC. Ask Aubrey Norton why he was not included in the last cabinet. He will tell you, you could have only served if you had loyalty to Granger. And he could go down the line. So, Michael, everybody knows that Granger's legacy is a sordid one. They manufactured controversies that they tried to create to obfuscate from the real issues, the spinning of narratives, the creation of falsehoods, and the painting of illusions. Come on, man. Granger don't know that 33 is a majority of 65? Did he have to let the CCJ tell him that? And you're saying that he acted right? I think his own supporters are disappointed with him. Granger was just a selfish, self-righteous, stylish individual who was careful to present an image while using other people to carry out his wishes.
I,
And that is
I,
why Guyana ended up with a no confidence vote. That is why we ended up in an election with an election impasse. That is why we ended up in a GCOM with all that was facilitated, because Granger was president. And he must take full responsibility for the damage. What we're having now, the Trevor Ben fiasco, the land giveaways, the corruption in the hierarchy of the police force, these are all things that come home to the doorstep of David Arthur Granger. But I don't even know if he's still in the equation, because you don't see him.
it's a very
So
good
that's where we
question.
are.
Very good question. Whether he's still in the equation, and knowing how Mr. Granger has operated in the past, he may very well still be. They're always.
I'm unable to hear you.
I believe he may very well be. But our time has gone, Bishop. Some parting words, especially as it relates to all that has been happening recently in the body politic. A practically non-existent political opposition, and political opposition who pursues meaningless things, who could have otherwise been given simple explanations, playing petty politics at the expense of their support base, at a time also when their support base has been calling for the replacement of their own leadership. On these parting words, I'd like to hear your closing thoughts before we close this program. Okay, we seem to be having some technical challenges. Bishop, are you with me? Okay, I believe the
Michael,
bishop.
I'm unable to follow you. I'm not hearing anything that is coming from your end.
All
I
right.
think we have some technical difficulties.
Yes, because of those technical difficulties, I believe our time is gone. We'll have to bring this program to a close. But I'm sure there's so much more Minister Edghill and I have to discuss as it relates to issues within the body politic. I will undoubtedly have to invite Minister Edghill back for us to conclude this discussion since our time is gone. I'd like to thank Bishop for being a part of the program. I know you have a very busy schedule correcting the David Patterson wrongs, notwithstanding the fact that the exigencies of service require you to be in many places at most of your time. So thanks again, Minister of Public Works, the Honorable Juan Edghill, for being a part of this program. I'd like to thank you viewing and listening to this program, whether in or out of Guyana. I am happy that you took time out to be with us tonight. This has been Let's Talk Politics, a program brought to you by the People's Progressive Party. I am your host, Michael Gordon. Thanks for being with us. Join my colleague, Edward Lynn, who will be with you again at this same place, same time on Tuesday, and I will be back with you on Wednesday being Independence Day. Until we meet again, have a good night.